There were a little over a dozen injuries from that attack. But nevertheless, that the Houthis have been attacking Israel this whole time. But the problem is, I wouldn't really actually even describe it as a problem, but what's been happening is that Israel has been deflecting a lot of these attacks or thwarting them, right, because of their missile defense system.
Why is it that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like the Houthis, more than other groups, have been able to penetrate that Iron Dome and make it into Tel Aviv. How do they do that?
Correct. So yeah, that's we have to understand something. So the missile defense system, the layers of missile defense system that the Israelis have, they have the Iron Dome, and they have several other missile systems that are specifically tailored to tackle ballistic missiles. And for some, we don't know exactly why, because the Israelis haven't really divulged this information for their own reasons. But some of these attacks, right, have gone through either drones or ballistic missiles. Now, we have to remember, though, this is important. This is more than a year of attacks, okay, from the Houthis. So essentially, through all this time, through about 15 months of attacks, a few or a handful have gone through, again, drones and ballistic missiles. So I think one of the attacks, I think it was a drone some months ago, killed an Israeli in Tel Aviv, or killed a civilian in Tel Aviv. Nevertheless, I would say I believe that the Israelis have done a fairly good job at tackling these attacks by the Houthis, but it's not 100% hermetic, right? It's not foolproof, this Israel's missile defense system. So some are going to get through, and we've seen that with the Houthis in the last 15 months.
So let's just catch people up, people that don't follow this story as closely as you and I do. What have the Houthis been doing? Of course, they've been taking direct shots at Israel, but let's talk a little bit about what they've been doing to the supply chain and what they've been causing in the Red Sea.
Right. So essentially, just to put it simply, since after the October 7th attack in Israel, what the Houthis have done, at first they started firing only at Israel, all right? Again, drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles. However, after a few months, they changed their strategy. They were having some problems hitting Israel in the beginning. So what they did, they started attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea area. And they've had some success in the last 15 months. They've sunk a few ships. And not only have they attacked commercial ships, they attacked military vessels, specifically American military vessels. So we don't know that, rather they have been successful at sinking an American vessel, right, or a military vessel, but they're attempting. So that's the danger there. So this has caused the change in strategy by the Houthis. Essentially, it's caused some problems for commercial shipping, right? Because what the Houthis are saying is this: any ship in the Red Sea area that wants to dock in Israel is going to be attacked by us. All right. So that's what the Houthis are doing. They're threatening these commercial vessels. So these vessels that do not respond to the Houthis, they come under attack sometimes. So this is what essentially the Houthis have been doing over the last 15 months. Yes, they've had some success at this, right? They've sunk some vessels, they've damaged some vessels. They forced vessels to reroute to get to Israel. So it's caused some problems. This is why we've seen the United States come in and step in with its allies, especially the UK, to combat this issue, to try to protect these ships in the Red Sea. They've had success doing that, but the Houthis continue to fire.
What's been going on in Gaza while all this has been happening?
Correct. So, yeah, we have to talk about Gaza, right? All of this is happening because of Gaza. So, essentially, in the last few months, what we've been seeing is, or observing, the Israelis targeting Hamas commanders and cells that have been operating in the Gaza Strip. For a while there in the last few months, it's been in the north, where Hamas where Hamas reemerged and essentially started attacking Israeli troops. And the Israelis went in there and basically tried to clean up shop. I think that we're successful with that. However, the problem with Gaza is that Hamas and other allied Palestinian terrorist organizations, they take advantage of the civilian population. Specifically, they've been operating out of humanitarian zones, all right? They've been setting up command and control centers. They've been launching rockets from these humanitarian zones into Israel, specifically southern Israel, and it's been causing problems. So the Israelis are forced to respond to that. Nevertheless, Hamas is still active. Groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, they're still active. Yes, they are battered, all right, for sure. That's not a question. But they're still around, even though they've lost their commanders, they've lost leaders. So the issue of Palestinian terrorist groups attacking Israeli troops is still there. There's a little bit of good news, I would say, about possible ceasefire coming up. We'll see. Things with Gaza are still a problem, unfortunately, but we'll see how things unfold in the next days and weeks.
Some of the recent reporting has said that President Biden, of course, wants to get some sort of deal done before he leaves office. That's less than a month away at this point. Inauguration Day is on January 20th. Does it feel like the change of administrations and the incoming administration, the incoming U.S. administration, is changing some of the calculus in the Middle East? Is it changing how some of these nation states and some of these groups are thinking?
I think so. I think they see that incoming President Trump means what he says, right? Especially after his statement about what's going to happen in the Middle East, specifically when it comes to Hamas, if they don't give up the hostages, right? If there isn't a ceasefire. So I think that's important. And these organizations, these armed groups, I think are noticing that. And that's why I think we're seeing some changes right on the ground. Specifically, again, this talk about these negotiations about a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. Also, I think it had a lot to do with what happened with Hezbollah, right? And the ceasefire there with Israel. So I think these organizations, these bad actors, whether they're armed groups or nation states, they see that what Trump said, that he actually means what he says. So they're correcting their actions essentially. So nevertheless, hope to see a ceasefire in Israel and the Gaza Strip where where Israel gets the hostages back and there is some peace there. But we'll see. Again, it's the Middle East and things have been pretty rough the last 15, 16 months now.
When we broke this news about the CENTCOM strike earlier today, I saw a good question from a commenter online. They asked, what does the Yemeni government think of all of this happening? How much sway do they even have in all of this? And what do they think of all that's happening on their soil there in the Yemeni territory, in the Houthi-controlled territory, excuse me?
Right. So I think obviously they don't want to see they don't like what's happening. But the problem is I don't think there is an issue with will here. I think the problem is more than anything is that the government isn't able to tackle the Houthis. All right. We saw Saudi Arabia, its coalition of partners attack the Houthis relentlessly for years. But to no avail. The Houthis, you can easily say that the Houthis won that conflict. So nevertheless, I think right now, more than anything, people need to notice, especially the U.S. government and other world leaders as well, that the Houthis are becoming a significant force. One could actually argue that out of all the Iran-backed groups that have been involved in this war in the Middle East, I think the Houthis are probably going to come out on top here more than anything else, just because of all the attacks that they've launched and basically the success that they've had. So, which is bad, right? So we need to, I think, the incoming president, President Trump, and other world leaders need to look at the Houthis carefully here and devise a plan, because this is not going to stop. The Houthis are going to continue what they're doing because they've been successful, and Iran is likely going to arm them even more.
Joe Truzman is a senior research analyst with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thanks for coming on. Talk soon.